Let me ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly in your own heart. What have you been saying to yourself lately? Not to your friends, not to your family, not to your coworkers. I'm talking about the words that echo in your mind when you wake up, when you look in the mirror, when you're walking alone, when nobody else can hear but you. Because here's the truth. Those words, those conversations you have with yourself in the silence, they are either building the foundation for your future or they are quietly tearing it apart piece by piece. Most people don't even realize how much power is hidden in their inner dialogue. They think mentality is built from outside influences, what other people say about them, what life throws at them. But the real battleground is right here between your ears. You can hear 10 compliments in a day and 1 criticism. And if your inner conversation is unhealthy, that 1 criticism will live rent-free in your mind, shaping your confidence, your decisions, and even your destiny. You see, life will always have voices. Some will cheer you on, some will tear you down, and some will simply doubt you because your dream is bigger than their understanding. But none of those voices will ever be as loud, as consistent, and as influential as the one you choose to be your own. If your inner voice is constantly telling you, you're not enough, you always mess things up, you're too late, you're not smart enough, then even when opportunity comes knocking, you'll talk yourself out of it before you take the first step. That's why you have to become intentional, deliberate, about the words you plant in your mind. Because your mentality is like soil. Whatever you plant will grow, and whatever grows will determine the harvest of your life. If you plant weeds of self-doubt, you can't expect a harvest of confidence. If you plant seeds of fear, don't be surprised when hesitation and procrastination show up to choke your progress. But if you plant words of truth, words that align with your God-given identity, words that remind you of your value and your purpose, then even in the storms of life, your mentality will remain strong and unshakable. Now, I'm not talking about empty self-help slogans that you repeat with no conviction. I'm talking about speaking life over yourself until your mind aligns with it. That means when fear tells you, you can't do this, you respond, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. When failure whispers, you're done, you declare, this is not the end, I'm just getting started. When the mirror tries to remind you of your flaws, you tell it, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. You see, you have to train your mind to recognize truth and reject lies. And here's the reality, your mind is not going to automatically agree with the truth right away. In fact, the first few times you speak life over yourself, it might feel fake. You might feel like you're lying to yourself because you've been rehearsing negativity for so long that positivity feels foreign. But just like a muscle, your mentality grows stronger through repetition. You don't go to the gym once and expect to be strong forever. You lift, you push, you stretch, and over time, your body changes. The same is true for your mind. The more you practice healthy inner conversation, the more natural it becomes until one day you wake up, and that's just who you are now. Too many of us have allowed past experiences to hijack our inner voice. Maybe you failed in the past, and now your mind tells you, why even try again? Maybe someone important in your life told you that you would never be good enough, and now you've adopted their words as your own. But you have to understand, just because something was said to you or about you doesn't mean it has to live inside you. You can evict that voice. You can choose a new language for your life. I remember hearing someone once say, your mind is a garden, your thoughts are the seeds. You can grow flowers or you can grow weeds. And the beauty of it is, you're the gardener. No one else is going to come into your mind every morning and plant the right thoughts for you. That's your responsibility. That's your job. That's your daily discipline. And if you don't take care of your mental garden, weeds will grow automatically because the world is full of negativity. The enemy would love for you to keep speaking defeat into your own life. Because if he can get you to destroy yourself with your own words, he doesn't have to fight you. He's already won. That's why you can't afford to casually think whatever comes to your mind. You've got to filter your thoughts like you filter the water you drink. You wouldn't drink from a polluted river, so why are you letting polluted thoughts sit in your mind without challenge? Every day when you wake up, you have a choice. You can either let your thoughts drift aimlessly toward fear, doubt, and insecurity, or you can set your mind on purpose, faith, and victory. And this choice doesn't just affect how you feel, It affects how you live, how you speak to others, how you pursue opportunities, and how you handle obstacles. I need you to understand something important. Your inner voice will either be your coach or your critic, and whichever one it is will determine whether you rise or you quit. So if your critic has been too loud lately, it's time to turn up the volume on your coach. Tell yourself, I can do this. I will finish strong. I am built for this moment. I have what it takes. And keep telling yourself that. Not once, not twice, but until your mind can't help but believe it. When you master your inner conversation, you don't just change your mood, you change your mentality. You shift from reacting to life to directing your life. You stop being at the mercy of what happens to you and start shaping what happens through you. And I'll leave you with this. If the words you've been speaking to yourself were written on a billboard for the whole world to see, would you be proud of them? If not, change them today, because your future will rise or fall based on the voice you choose to listen to. Let me ask you something, and I want you to let it sink deep. How do you react when life presses you? I'm not talking about those days when the sun is shining, everything goes right, and people are cheering for you. I mean those days when you get a phone call that changes your plans, when the opportunity you were counting on falls apart, when you give your best and it still isn't enough. Because here's the truth, pressure doesn't create your character, it reveals it. Pressure pulls back the curtain and shows what's really been built inside of you all along. We live in a time where so many people avoid anything uncomfortable. They dodge challenges like they're dangerous. But growth never comes from ease. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Steel is forged in fire. And mental strength is developed in adversity. If you run from every challenge, you will never discover what you're truly capable of. It's the resistance that builds your resilience. Every time life turns up the heat, you have a decision to make. You can either see the challenge as an attack meant to destroy you, or you can see it as training designed to prepare you. Too often, we look at difficulty and say, why me? When the better question is, what is this building in me? Because every trial carries a lesson. Every disappointment contains a hidden upgrade. Every obstacle is an opportunity in disguise. But you won't see it if you're only focused on how hard it feels. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. And you don't build it when everything is going your way. You build it when the wind is against you, when the odds are stacked high, when the voice in your head says, quit, and you still choose to keep going. That's when you develop a mentality that can handle whatever life throws at you. Think about it. An athlete doesn't become stronger by lifting the same light weight over and over. They grow by increasing the weight, by pushing their muscles to the point where they're challenged, stretched, and sometimes even torn so they can rebuild stronger. The same is true for your mind. Every time you go through something difficult and come out the other side, you're mentally lifting heavier. And the next time a storm comes, it won't shake you the way it once did. But here's where many people miss it. They mistake pressure for punishment. Just because you're facing difficulty doesn't mean you're being punished. In fact, it often means you're being prepared. Sometimes the only way for you to be ready for the level you've been praying for is to endure the training that comes before it. That training often looks like struggle, setbacks, and situations that push you beyond your comfort zone. When a seed is planted in the ground, it has to break before it can grow. That breaking is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. In the same way, there are seasons in your life where things will feel like they're breaking. Your plans, your expectations, maybe even your confidence. But if you keep your faith and hold your ground, you'll find that those very moments where breaking open new strength, new wisdom, and new endurance inside of you. I want you to remember this. Resilience is not the absence of pain. It's the decision to keep moving forward in spite of it. It's not pretending the challenge isn't hard. It's refusing to let the hardness stop you. You can acknowledge the weight of what you're carrying without letting it crush you. You can be honest about the battle and still commit to winning it. Too many people quit right before their breakthrough because the pressure got too heavy. They let the discomfort convince them that they're not strong enough, when in reality, they were just inches away from discovering how strong they truly are. Don't make that mistake. If life has turned up the heat, it's not to burn you, it's to purify you. The fire doesn't destroy gold, it removes the impurities. The challenge isn't there to strip you of your value, it's there to reveal it. Sometimes God will allow you to be placed in situations where you can't rely on your usual strength. That's when you learn to dig deeper. That's when you discover a well inside you that you didn't even know existed. That's when you realize that your endurance is greater than your fear, your perseverance is stronger than your doubt, and your faith is bigger than your frustration. The truth is, pressure is part of the process. You cannot pray for growth and then avoid the very conditions that produce it. You cannot ask for a stronger mentality and then complain when life gives you the resistance needed to develop it. Every trial is your gym. Every hardship is your training ground. Every storm is an invitation to build the kind of strength you'll need for the next level. And here's the beautiful thing. Once you've been through enough storms, you stop being afraid of rain. Once you've survived enough pressure, you stop doubting whether you can handle it. You start to see the challenge not as an enemy, but as a teacher. You learn to say, I've been here before. I know how this works. I know what's on the other side of this pain. That mindset changes everything. So, the next time life puts you under pressure, don't shrink back. Lean in. Ask yourself, what is this building in me? What will I be able to handle after this that I couldn't before? And remember, resilience is not built overnight. It's built choice by choice, day by day, in the middle of every test. The same pressure that can crush you can also create you. It all depends on how you respond. Let me start by asking you this. If I followed you around for the next 7 days and recorded every conversation you had, every video you watched, every song you listened to, every person you gave your time to, would I be able to tell that you were protecting your mind like it was priceless? Or would I find that you've been letting anything and everything have access to it? Because here's the truth. Your mind is the most valuable real estate you will ever own, and you can't afford to let just anybody set up shop there. What you allow into your mental space will shape the way you think, the way you feel, and ultimately the way you live. If you keep allowing negativity, gossip, fear, and doubt to rent space in your mind, they will eventually own the neighborhood. And once they own the neighborhood, they'll control the future you build there. The problem is, most people are careless with what they consume and who they surround themselves with. They think they can handle a little bit of poison here and there. But even a small leak can sink a big ship over time. I've seen people with incredible talent and God-given potential never step into their purpose, not because they didn't have what it takes, but because they allowed the wrong voices to dominate their mental space. It's not always the loud, obvious voices that do the most damage. It's the subtle ones. The so-called friend who always has a realistic reason why your dream is too big. The coworker who laughs every time you talk about your goals. The social media feed filled with comparison, chaos, and distraction. Little by little, these voices weaken your confidence, and before you know it, you're living below your calling simply because you've been inhaling toxic air. You have to start treating your mind like you treat your body. You wouldn't eat rotten food and expect to be healthy, so why are you consuming rotten conversations, unhealthy relationships, and damaging content, expecting to have a strong mentality? What you feed your mind will either nourish you or poison you. And the tricky thing is, sometimes the poison comes disguised as entertainment, as casual chatter, or even as advice. That's why you must have discernment. Not everything that looks harmless is harmless. Guarding your mental space means you become intentional about your environment. That doesn't just mean the physical places you go. It also means the invisible spaces you dwell in. Your group chats, your podcasts, your YouTube history, your playlists, your circle of influence, all of these are shaping your mentality, whether you notice it or not. And sometimes guarding your mind means making hard choices. It might mean unfollowing certain accounts, not because you hate the person, but because the content keeps you in comparison instead of gratitude. It might mean spending less time with certain people, not because you think you're better than them, but because you've realized that every time you leave their presence, you feel drained instead of inspired. It might mean shutting off the news when you realize it's not informing you anymore. It's just making you anxious. You don't have to let every opinion into your mind. You don't have to give access to every voice that demands it. Just because someone has proximity to you doesn't mean they should have influence over you. Influence is earned. Influence should be trusted. If a voice doesn't push you toward your purpose, you have the right to mute it. And here's something I need you to catch. Guarding your mind is not just about blocking the negative, it's also about inviting the positive. You can't just close the door on one thing and leave it empty inside. An unoccupied space will always get filled. If you remove toxic voices but don't replace them with healthy ones, your mind will still be vulnerable. That's why you need to intentionally fill your environment with voices that speak life, content that feeds your faith, and relationships that challenge you to grow. Surround yourself with people who believe in your calling, even when you doubt yourself. Listen to words that remind you of your identity when you feel lost. Read books that stretch your thinking instead of shrinking it. Engage in conversations that fuel your creativity instead of killing it. This isn't about living in a bubble. It's about creating a climate where your mentality can thrive. Think about a greenhouse. It's not that the plants inside couldn't grow outside. It's that the greenhouse provides a controlled environment where growth is maximized and threats are minimized. That's what you have to do for your mind. You have to create a mental greenhouse. You have to set boundaries for what gets in and what stays out. And when something slips in that doesn't belong, you have to deal with it quickly before it spreads. The world is noisy, and if you're not careful, that noise will drown out the still, small voice that's guiding you. Every notification, every headline, every unsolicited opinion, it's all fighting for a spot in your mental space, but you get to choose what makes the cut. You get to decide what has permission to live in your mind. That's your authority. Don't give it away cheaply. Because the reality is, if you don't guard your mind, you will eventually believe the lies that are spoken to you long enough. And once you believe them, they become your truth, even if they're not true. And once they become your truth, they will shape your decisions, your habits, your future. That's how powerful your mental space is. So take inventory. Ask yourself, what have I been allowing in my mind this week? Does it push me closer to my purpose or pull me away from it? Does it make me more hopeful or more fearful? Does it build my faith or feed my doubt? Be brutally honest with your answers because your mentality depends on it. The atmosphere you allow around you will eventually become the atmosphere within you. Guard it well. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really pause before you answer. When was the last time you truly pushed yourself to grow? Not because you had to, not because life forced you into it, but because you made the decision that where you are is not where you're going to stay. Too many people stop evolving because they've reached a point in life where they feel comfortable. And comfort is dangerous because it whispers, you're good enough, when in reality, you're capable of so much more. A strong mentality is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It's something you have to work on every single day. You can't expect yesterday's growth to carry you through tomorrow's challenges. Life is always changing. The world is always shifting. And if you stop learning, stop stretching, stop challenging yourself, you start falling behind mentally, spiritually, emotionally. You may not see the decline immediately, but over time, your thinking will become stagnant, your creativity will dry up, and your resilience will weaken. Growth has to become a lifestyle. It's not just about reading a book once in a while or listening to a motivational message every now and then. It's about committing yourself to being a student for life. No matter how much you've accomplished, no matter how much wisdom you've gained, there is always more to learn, more to refine, more to master. The moment you think you've arrived is the moment you start declining. Some people think age automatically equals wisdom, but that's not true. Time alone doesn't make you wiser, learning does. Experience doesn't teach you unless you're paying attention and applying what you've learned. That means you can be in the same place mentally at 50 that you were at 25 if you've stopped stretching yourself. And sadly, that's exactly where many people find themselves. They've let routine take over their lives. And while routine can be good for discipline, it can also become the enemy of growth if you never break out of it. Growth requires intentional discomfort. It means stepping into situations that challenge your thinking. It means engaging with ideas you don't already agree with so you can sharpen your perspective. It means having the humility to admit that you don't know it all and the courage to do something about it. It's not always comfortable to learn something new, to practice a skill you're not yet good at, or to put yourself in rooms where people are ahead of you. But that discomfort is where transformation happens. Think about a tree. If it stops growing, it's not just staying the same, it's starting to die. Growth is a sign of life, and your mentality is no different. If you're not actively developing it, you're allowing it to wither. You may not notice it until you're faced with a challenge that you're no longer equipped to handle because you've been coasting instead of climbing. The truth is, the future belongs to the learners. The people who will thrive are the ones who keep their minds open, their hearts teachable, and their habits aligned with constant improvement. They don't wait for someone else to teach them. They seek out opportunities to grow. They read, they listen, they observe, they ask questions, and most importantly, they apply what they've learned. But growth isn't just about acquiring information. It's about transformation. You can know 100 good principles and still live a small life if you never act on them. The test of growth is application. It's not enough to say, I know I should be more disciplined. You have to actually build the habits. It's not enough to say, I know I should think more positively. You have to actually practice replacing negative thoughts with empowering ones. Knowledge without action is potential wasted. One of the reasons people stop growing is because growth demands sacrifice. It demands time that could be spent on entertainment. It demands energy that could be spent on comfort. It demands humility because to grow you have to admit there's more to learn. But here's the thing, what you sacrifice for growth will never be as valuable as what growth gives back to you. Every new skill, every new insight, every new layer of mental strength you develop increases your capacity to handle life, to lead others, and to fulfill your purpose. And don't think growth only comes from success. It comes from failure too. In fact, some of the most valuable growth you'll ever experience will come from your mistakes. Failure has a way of teaching lessons success never will. It humbles you, it sharpens you, it forces you to reevaluate. But only if you're willing to see it as part of the process instead of the end of the road. You can't be passive about your mentality. You can't just hope it stays strong. You have to feed it daily, stretch it regularly, and test it often. That's how you keep it alive. That's how you make sure it's ready for whatever's coming next. Because let me tell you, life will test you. Opportunities will demand more of you than your current self can deliver. And that's a good thing. It means you'll have to grow into the person who can handle them. So never get comfortable thinking you've done enough. Celebrate your progress, yes. Be grateful for how far you've come, absolutely. But never stop asking, what's next for me to learn? How can I be better tomorrow than I was today? That mindset will keep you sharp, keep you hungry, and keep you moving forward when others start settling. The journey of growth has no finish line. You never arrive, and that's not discouraging. It's empowering, because it means there's always another level, another layer, another version of yourself waiting to be discovered. And every time you choose to keep growing, you're choosing to keep becoming. If you want a strong mentality, you can't afford to stop.